Welcome back, folks. I've been away for a while doing very important things, but now I'm back to show you some of the things that I've made. So let's get right into it. Before we get too far into this, I just want to explain, I'm going to try to commentate these live and see how that sounds, because rather than just throw these all at you one at a time, I want to actually explain what some of them do. So this first one is a controller for Smash Brothers. That is a digital controller. So instead of having a joystick that you move around, you just have these different button combinations. As you can see, these controllers are just all buttons. And some people would say that if you use one of these, well, you're cheater! Cheater! Which personally, I kind of agree with, but hey, if you can't beat them, join them. Unfortunately, these controllers are expensive, like mega expensive, and I'm not exactly about to fork that much money over when it's something that I can just DIY myself. So I went ahead, I took this schematic from Crane's Lab Discord, and I got all of the code for it off the internet from someone else. I didn't write it, but as you can see, if you take a Raspberry Pi Pico and kind of wire it in the same way, it should work totally fine. I also 3D printed a shell for it, which I started by taking a picture of the default layout of the box, just so I can kind of understand the spacing that a lot of the buttons should be at. From there, I went ahead and made a housing for each of the computer keys that I would use as my buttons for my controller. Here you can see a couple of different iterations of the box, but I've started to put the little keycaps in the same pattern that the default layout is in on this one slab. From there, I hollowed out a little bit more space on the back for all of the wires that I'd be soldering between all of them, and then these blue triangles come down from the top piece so that it can secure into the bottom. And there you can see the two halves together, it kind of forms that box shape. I also have these two circles, these holes that I didn't end up using. I was gonna originally have magnets in them, and magnets on the back, so it kind of forces the box to stay together, but it works as a friction fit just fine. Friction fit meaning if you just smash the pieces together, they won't come apart unless you like really pry them apart. Here's the back. I have this small cavity for the Raspberry Pi Pico, but I figured with all the wires and everything else I was gonna stuff in there, I probably want a little bit more space. So I have this second iteration that does exactly that and just carves out a little bit more space for all those pieces. But even that wasn't enough. So for the final iteration of it, I really ended up carving out a lot more, which made it a little bulkier. So this is what that bottom piece looks like in real life. It came out fairly well. And then here's the wiring that is going in the top part. As you can see, each of these keys has a yellow wire and a black wire. The black wire is just daisy chained to ground, and the yellow wire each go to a different pin for a different button. And then all of them go up to this adapter at the top, which will actually plug into the GameCube controller cable. And overall, it seems to sit in there pretty fine. I definitely could have done a little nicer of a job, but I just wanted to see if I could really get this to work. And as you can see, when I put the two pieces together, it actually fits pretty nice. I can go ahead and even shake it a little bit and even give this little flip. And it looks totally great. For the top, I ended up using these blue keycaps, and I actually thought it was really smart. I used the ones with little grooves, the F, J, and numpad 5 keys, for parts on the box that I think would be more important to lay my hand on, so I know my finger's on the correct button without having to look down. And I also got this beautiful keycap for the start button that is this koi fish that I am absolutely in love with. This is probably my favorite part of the whole build. So for the adapter, I went ahead and made a second housing. This is a GameCube controller cable that I took off an actual controller and then soldered to these pins here, which plug into the board. This little tooth part on the bottom that's pink is going to go ahead and friction fit into the board and make sure everything stays together nice. And then I have a pink cover for this to keep the cable in there nice and securely. I can go ahead and plug that right in the top, and it's going to stay in there. And as you can see on the other side is in fact the GameCube port plug-in. Overall, I'm pretty happy with this build. I had a really good time making it, although it took a while, and now it kind of gives me something useful that I can use to practice and try to learn without having to invest several $100s. It's really fun having one this small. You can kind of just keep it in your pocket. I ended up also taking it to a local tournament where I played with my friend in doubles. He's also a box fox, and we ended up winning doubles, so that was a fun little cherry on top to this whole project.
Mission complete!
Do you guys just have that friend that loves Minecraft and it's their birthday, but they're not turning 7, they're turning 25? No? Well, anyways, I do, so I thought about trying to build a fun cake, and I went ahead and actually prototyped kind of what I was going to make in Minecraft itself So I started with this first layer, which was just gray food dye and cake. Frankly, it looked kind of gross, but it did a little bit look like stone. And I added in all these patches of sprinkles, kind of like you see here, to represent different ores. So just put like big dollop of red here, big dollop of this kind of gold color over here, big dollop of green here. From there, I went ahead, the second layer was spice cake, and it was kind of brown to represent the dirt. And then I also had homemade Rice Krispie treats, which would act as the sand. From there, I took a large loaf, I guess, maybe loaf's not the right word, of pound cake, and ended up cutting it up into all these fun little shapes to kind of create this hill. And also this small patch, this is actually Kahlua cake, it was really good, with sprinkles of green molding chocolate to be seeds, to kind of act as that planted seeds. From there, we went ahead and frosted it, blue for the water and green on the top of all the grass blocks. We also have a creeper made out of that molding chocolate and a chest, which I actually think I did a pretty good job on. And then in the back, we have a combination of kind of red, yellow, and orange chocolate to make that nice lava flow. And I thought that the candles would be a nice touch instead of torches. And finally, a wooden sign in front to say happy birthday. And I'd say the cake was a pretty big hit. It was also pretty good. It wasn't great. Obviously, there's a lot of flavors clashing, but I mean, cake is cake. And I was even lucky enough to squirt some diamonds, so I had a pretty good time with that. And here you can see, this was my reference again for making that cake. It even has a little creeper. And that's just something else I love about Minecraft. There's just so much you can do with it. Not only can you build all of this cool stuff, but there's so many other things to explore. It's got these awesome fantasy elements, things you could just never do in real life, right? Travel to other worlds, fight a dragon, fish. Unless. Man, something about fishing in Minecraft just gets me raw cod. So I went about seeing if I could create a fishing rod from Minecraft in real life, starting with this PVC pipe, and I printed out this little piece to see how well it fit in these holes, but generally the pipe is just a little bit thicker than I would have wanted it to be. Yes, I'm aware she said that. So I ended up having to revisit that problem, but here you can see all of my designs for the fishing rod. I started with just the picture of the fishing rod itself, and then kind of recreated the part that I wanted to make with cubes. And then you can see this blue piece here is where that pipe is going to end up going to kind of keep the whole piece together. Here was an early prototype of how I thought the reel might work. That didn't really end up happening. And here I have prototypes for fitting these pieces around the reel. I printed out these cylinders to kind of see which ones fit best with the reel. And you can see my kind of prototype design with these cubes is essentially there's a big hole through the middle that the pipe's going to go through, and then each of these is going to kind of fit together. Here's what I actually ended up doing with the reel. On the left is kind of the ball bearing piece that I was going to use. I just created a cylinder that was kind of the same size. On the right is what's in the bottom. That's where the ball bearing would kind of slide over and be attached to the main part of the rod, and the reel would kind of be unattached and would have that blue cylinder piece which we could tie the fishing line to and then wrap around. And then I've gone ahead and broken the rod into several smaller pieces so I can actually print it on my bed because it's pretty big. And this is the final piece. This is the main rod piece. You can see where the reel will kind of pivot around, and also this hole in the side so that the fishing line can actually get out and go into that main central pipe. These took a long time to print. Some of them took upwards of 18 hours, and they actually came out pretty well. I was pretty happy with them. It's very fun to just watch the printer chug away at these. And when we were done, I had all of these different pieces. So first off, I had this long piece that would be the main length of the rod. Next up would be the piece that would go in the middle to just make it a little bit longer. And lastly, the reel piece. You can see this ball bearing fly around in the middle, and also it has that hole to, again, let the line through as we just saw. Our last two pieces, one of them is going to be the reel. This is going to go ahead and fit over that ball bearing really easily and spin perfectly. It's very satisfying listening to it. And then we also have the hook, which will be tied on with fishing line. So I ended up also using a steel pipe. It was just a little thinner and a little more sturdy and gave it kind of nice weight. But obviously this piece was way too long. So I got this special blade for a reciprocating saw, a tool I had never used before, so I could cut this pipe down to a more reasonable length. This tool is pretty powerful and makes a lot of noise. Now that we have that nice pipe length, we also need to drill a hole where the fishing line is going to go into it. I didn't have a great drill bit for this, so it ended up taking a long time kind of pecking away at it, but as you'll see, eventually I'll be able to break through, and we have that perfect hole that we need for the line to go through. So now we actually have to put the line in. I'm going to first put it around the reel, and I tried to use a weight here to keep it attached to the reel, but I ended up having to actually tie a knot later. It will go through several of the pieces, including this reel chamber, and go all the way through into the side of the pipe and out the end where my hand is. We can also make sure that the hole in the pipe is lined up with the hole in the reel chamber by shining a light through and making sure we can see it from the end of the pipe. From there, we just assemble the 3 pieces, and voila! A Minecraft fishing rod in real life. Now, it's pretty fun to kind of cast out and reel up, trying it out on my stairs here, but it does actually work like a regular Minecraft fishing rod where you can use it on any body of water, and I mean any body of water. Seriously, any body of water. Last one actually came from when I was watching my friend's leopard gecko, and these things actually look more like a hybrid between a leopard and a gecko than I initially gave them credit for. But you can see Tracy here is hiding under her rock, kind of tucked away in the corner. It's really hard to see her, and I was kind of bummed out. I was hoping to hang out with her more while we had some time together. So I set up this contraption. Basically, the way this works in her cage is I have this sonic distance sensor at the top aimed at the middle portion of her enclosure. And she has a hot rock and a cold rock, and when she feels like changing it up, she will move from one to the other through the middle of the tank. We have this camera set up to monitor that middle of the tank that she's going to walk through. When she walks through it, the distance sensor will pick it up and alert the Raspberry Pi, which will text a link to a website containing a live stream of her walking through the tank to my phone. So no matter where I am, I can see her crossing her tank. Here you can see I was so excited I forgot to screenshot it until she was most of the way across her enclosure. But it worked great, and I had a really good time with it, and I hope Tracy did too. So that's all we had for Things I Made Too. Thanks for stopping by. We'll see you next time.